It's time for the X and Y Show with your host, Mr. Roosevelt. He talks about man topics, lady topics, and relationships. He talks about love, sex, and infidelities. He even gives good tips. There is no other show that compares to the X and Y Show.
Oh yeah. Sit back, take your clothes off, and relax. It's time for the X and Y Show, where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. The only place on the planet that tackles the topics that everyone wants to talk about, but no one is brave enough to address. Nothing escapes X and Y, baby. Now, here's your host, Roosevelt Colbert.
And greetings, and greetings. Welcome to another episode of the X and Y Show. I'm your host, Roosevelt. And I want to thank you for joining me this evening, this Friday night. Actually went well when this episode airs, it'll be Friday. But I just appreciate all of you and all of the feedback that I've been getting. Continue to provide me with that feedback, and I'll try to accommodate everyone. But I know that's impossible. But, you know, the more feedback I get, the more better experience that I can make for you of listening to the show. That is my goal, that everyone enjoy the show, and hopefully I've been achieving that up until this point. Now, the X and Y Show is available on a wide array of different venues for your convenience. The X and Y Show is available on Stitcher. It is also available on Google Play, and it is also available on TuneIn and iTunes. So all of those venues, whichever one you may use, is available for you. Whichever one you find easiest to use, or just you like better. So I'm trying to make it easy for you to access the show anywhere that you available to and able to access the show and listen to it, whatever platform that you use. You can also listen to it on the Spreaker platform as well. You can also listen to any archived episodes as well on the Spreaker website. Now, you can also follow me on all, most social media. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook and Tumblr, and also on Instagram. You can find all of that, including the platforms that the show is available on my website, all in one place. www.thexyshow.com. Again, www.thexyshow.com. You can also look at any upcoming episodes that is coming up through the pipe on the show in the next couple of months or so. You can also be a true X and Y and buy a t-shirt with a design of your choosing on the website as well. You can also send me a note and say hello on the website as well. So everything is on my website that you need to be a true X and Y'er. Now, with that being said, tonight's episode is something that I really wanted to talk about because it's something that affects a lot of people in marriages. And I want to emphasize on marriages because this subject for relationships or people that's dating, I don't think it applies to. And you'll see what I'm talking about in a second. But I guess tonight's episode is an episode based off vows and based off love and a little loyalty as well. So I'll get right into it. Tonight's episode is now, if your spouse became sick or disabled, would you really stay? Let me repeat the question to you. If your spouse became sick or disabled, would you really stay? And you can look at your spouse and kind of see what their reaction on their faces are. This is a question. That's why I said it's not for someone who's dating, because dating, there's no loyalty. If something happens to the other person, that other person is not really obligated to stay. It'd be cold that they left, but they're not really obligated. They're not vested. But someone who's married, that's a different story. When you're married, no matter what religion you're a part of, pretty much all of them that I know of have some sort of vows. Deep promises that you make to the other person that you are supposed to stick and abide by for the rest of your lives until death do us part. Those are words, but they're not just words. They are supposed to be promises. And a lot of people, I believe, and I feel that they just say the words, but they actually don't believe in the words. They only say the words and they'll follow the vows and abide by them when it's convenient. But during times of trouble, then they forget those vows and go against them. But, most of the time, there's different vows. Some people make vows by themselves. Some people just stick to the status quo or whatever. But most of them say something like this. With this ring, I thee wed. And all my worldly goods I thee endow. In sickness and in health, in poverty or in wealth, till death do us part. Let me read that again. Those are actually some beautiful words, especially if someone really means them when they say it. With this ring I thee wed, and all my worldly goods I thee endow. In sickness and in health, in poverty or in wealth, till death do us part. Beautiful words, powerful words. Unfortunately, though, a lot of times they are just words to many people. And like I say, they follow those words and abide by them as long as this is convenient for them. But as soon as there's a little dark times, they forget those very words that they just said a year ago or 5 years ago, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm sure you know people that have been married for 20, 25 years and getting a damn divorce. Makes no damn sense to me. Well, we're just not on the same page, we just grew apart. It's bullshit. If you took the vows, there should be no reason other than adultery. That's the only one that that's the only one that I have to give a pass to. But all that other bullshit, we just grew apart, The kids left and we didn't know each other. What kind of bullshit is that? But anyway, I don't want to get off too far on that tangent. I'm talking about if your spouse gets sick or disabled. Now, I just want to mention a few couples, that, have been in the press or been, they were celebrities or politicians, something of that nature. They're known by a lot of people and their lives were in a limelight, so to speak. And you would recognize who I'm speaking about. And this would kind of bring home to what I'm trying to say to you. First one is Gabrielle Giffords, For those of you who might not remember, she was the representative politician who was shot back in 2011. Actually, it was an assassination attempt. That fool actually tried to kill her, shot her in the head, and she actually lived. She lived. However, due to those injuries for being shot, she suffered, injuries that made her definitely impaired a little bit. Made her needing a lot more assistance than she had been getting. She never needed assistance for simple things, but she needed assistance to do certain things. She had to learn how to do a lot of stuff over again. Her speech was impaired. It still is a little bit. So it was a long road to recovery. It was nothing simple. It wasn't just a cut on the finger, so to speak. So it was a long recovery, and that's something that definitely affected her and her husband's life. But with that being said, her husband Mark stayed. Her husband Mark stayed with her and lived with her and endured with her all of the time of recovery. And he actually stayed with his wife. So that turned out to be a good story, right? So obviously, Mark took those vows to heart. He actually believed in those vows. Because he didn't have to stay. A lot of people wouldn't have stayed. But he did stay. So that turned out to be a good ending. He didn't just leave her in her time of need. Another name that you might remember, Christopher Reeves. For those of you who don't know, he was Superman. He had a horse accident in 1995. Basically, I think he fell off a horse. He was doing some kind of event, and he went to jump something, and the horse didn't jump. So he went flying off the front of the horse and got tangled in the reins, and he ended up falling on his head and breaking 2 vertebrae. So from that injury, he was paralyzed from the neck down. And, that really, I mean, I didn't know Christopher Reeves. I don't even know his middle name, but just seeing him as a kid, as Superman. And then when I seen him in that chair, it's like, that fucked me up a little bit. I'm like, that's Superman. What's going on? From what I was going through, that was shit compared to what his family was going through. Here's a person who could walk and run, who's very active one day, and the next day he can't walk, for the rest of his life. He ended up passing away, unfortunately, but, when he passed, he still couldn't use his legs. But his wife, I believe her name was Dana, if I'm not mistaken, but she stayed. She stayed with him. Could you imagine that? Your husband or wife all of a sudden being paralyzed and can't move. Obviously, they need a lot more attention than they did before. Small things like getting a glass of water. Big things like going to the bathroom. She stayed. She stayed with him. And even, I can see, I don't know them personally, but just watching from the outside, I felt the loyalty and the love from her towards him, and I felt that she really took the vows that she said to heart. She really believed those words in sickness and in health, to death do us part. So she stayed. That turned out to be a good ending there. Another actor you might, Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston, he played on a few movies. He played on a lot of movies, actually. Planet of the Apes, Take Your Hands Off Me, You Damn Dirty Ape. That was Charlton Heston. He played in the Ten Commandments as Moses. He played in various Ben-Hur, played in various other movies. So he was a big time movie star. But when he got older, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And he starts showing symptoms of the disease. Forgetting, loss of memory, etc., etc. But his wife stayed. His wife, I believe her name was Nanny or Nancy, Lida, Miss Lida. She stayed with her husband. She stayed with him. So again, that was another example of someone actually taking those vows in sickness and in health until death do us part. That was someone else that took those vows serious and to heart. She stayed with her husband when he was down. And another one, Ronald Reagan. I'm sure you all remember Ronald Reagan, who was president of the United States. He was also showing, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's later in life. So his wife, Nancy Reagan, stayed with him until the very end. So it was obvious that in all of these 4 examples, and I gave these 4 examples for, I wanted to show different scenarios. There was Alzheimer's, there was paralysis, there was gunshot wound, so it was all different type of scenarios, but there's many others, diseases, multiple sclerosis, whatever the case may be. There's all different types of scenarios in which the other spouse may be affected on a long-term basis or a life-threatening basis. But those were, 4 incidents where I just wanted to show you different. There was paralysis, there was gunshot, and there was Alzheimer's. It was different scenarios in which the other spouse could have said, "Fuck it, I'm out of here," but they didn't. They didn't, and that means a lot. That means a lot. Well, it should mean a lot. It means a lot to me. Because those are individuals who actually believed in the vows that they took. They actually really loved their spouses. To actually stay when times and times were dark. And there's countless others that stayed as well. I can't mention every damn body. But there's a lot of people that stayed. There's a lot of people who left, unfortunately. There's a lot of people who left. So ask yourself a question. I'm gonna take a little break, but before I go, I wanna put something in your head, because I'm gonna start playing the devil's advocate. But I want you to ask yourself a question. A person that leaves their spouse during the time that they're sick, and when I say sick, I'm talking about something major, like multiple sclerosis, something like AIDS, Alzheimer's, paralysis, something that's a long-term effect that, it's not nothing that's going to be fixed in a week. If that person left, does that make them a bad person? I'm going to repeat that. A person in which their spouse have become disabled, okay, we just say that, and they leave because of that. They just don't want to go through that. They just, they didn't sign up for that. That person that left, does that make them a bad person? Yes or no? Anyway, I'll answer that when I come back from break, and I just want you to think about, before you answer that question, put yourself in those shoes. Would you leave, or would you stay? You're listening to the X and Y Show, and I'm your host, Roosevelt. And I will return in about 4.5 minutes.
Welcome back to the X and Y Show. Hope you're enjoying tonight's episode. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Google, Instagram, and Tumblr. Well, alright. Back to our real cute teddy bear of a host, Roosevelt.
And welcome back to the X and Y Show. And tonight's show, I'm talking about if a spouse suddenly became sick or disabled, would you stay? And I'm talking to married folk. I'm not talking to people in relationships, because relationships that ain't shit. They don't have anything to lose. They're not obligated. They're not vested. They can leave. Nobody would look at them crazy. Like I said, they'd be cold, but they can leave. They're not vested. They don't have anything. It's nothing. But a marriage is different. When you take vows, you make promises to that person for the rest of their lives. That's different. So I was speaking on if a person, your spouse, got sick or disabled, would you leave? Now, before I went on break, I asked a question. If a person that left when their spouse became disabled, or vegetable, something like that, something basically where they need a lot of care, if they left, would that make them a bad person? Yes or no? Let me run some scenarios by you now, and I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit, but I just want to bring home to what I'm saying. Ladies, what if your husband comes down with prostate cancer? And, he's treated, and he's going to live, but he has to take a lot of medication, and sometimes the medication that he's taking renders the ability to have sex. So basically he can't fuck. Or if he does, it's very difficult. Okay? And you might be in your prime. I'm not talking about, prostate cancer could hit anyone. I'm talking about a man who's, picture yourselves being married for only 5 years, and you both are still young. He's 32, and you're 28. So you want to fuck. So your husband, he had his prostate cancer, and they fixed it, and he's okay, but he has to take this medication where it's very difficult for him now. Would you leave? You're in your sexual prime, and basically your husband can't satisfy you like he used to. And I know a lot of you saying, well, that's kind of selfish. There's other ways to satisfy. He can give her oral sex, or they can bring toys into the play. Yeah, they can do all of that. But there's nothing like some dick. There's nothing like, real sex with your partner and feeling him inside of you. Speaking from a woman's point of view, of course. But what I'm saying is, what if that happened early in your marriage and he's unable to perform again? Would you leave him for that? A lot of you women say no. But a lot of women have. A lot of women have left their husband just because, sex performance. It's not unusual. You heard about it. I'll give you another one. What if your spouse gets or has their limbs amputated due to diabetes or a car accident or something like that? But basically they have to have both of the legs amputated, or the arm, or, they're very active. You two are very active with one another. You used to jog, used to walk at different festivals, and used to do things a lot together that required a lot of walking. Now he or she can no longer do that. They might need a wheelchair. They might need prosthetics. Who knows? But they're not the same. They have their limbs amputated, and they need a certain amount of care and a certain amount of special access to certain venues because they're handicapped now. Would you stay? What if your spouse goes blind? What if one day your wife or your husband wake up or something happens, an accident or something where they get hit in the eyes, or they wake up and they can't see any longer? Would you stay? Because obviously a person that's blind, they're going to have to learn how to live as a blind person, walking around, getting around the house. Could be a huge challenge, let alone going outside and trying to live an active life. We can't see, and learning how to live that way. Learning how to read with the Braille. That's hard. That's a difficult road ahead of you. Your spouse went blind. Would you stay? What about memory loss due to Alzheimer's? Would you stay? Now, if you notice, I'm talking about real serious shit. I'm not talking about cut on fingers, and, even broken legs and shit. I'm talking about real stuff, real long-term conditions that will affect you both forever. You both will never be the same. The person that's injured or disabled or vegetable now, whatever the case may be, and the person that's living with them, the spouse, your lives are changed forever. I'm talking about long-term shit. I'm not talking about short-term where she can't cook for a week, or he can't cut the lawn for a couple of weeks or whatever. That's bullshit. I'm talking about long-term shit that's going to affect you both for the rest of your lives. Now, when I mentioned those scenarios earlier with the actors and so forth, Gabrielle Giffords, Christopher Reeves, Charlton Heston, Ronald Reagan, and countless others, like I said. Now, I'm playing devil's advocate again. Do you believe that time might have an effect on if a person will stay or not? And let me elaborate on that. A person let's say a couple that's been married for a year, okay, and something happens where one of the individuals in the marriage are disabled now, after a year or two in a marriage. I think that they would have a different outlook on things if compared to someone who's been married 25 or 20, 25, 30 years. Obviously I'm not saying that they love each other more. I guess you could say that kind of, but in a weird kind of way. But they've been together longer. So, a person that's been married only a year, they might say, well, I don't been married to a year, fuck this, I didn't sign up for this, I'm out of here. They don't have much vested in the marriage, I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying that a person that hasn't been married long, they would have perhaps a different opinion than a couple that's been married 30, 35, 40 years. Like when Charlton Heston and his wife, when he was diagnosed, I think they had been married for damn 45, 50 years already. So, she wasn't going anywhere. 5 decades. And I'm not sure when Christopher Reeve got paralyzed. I'm sure they was married at least 20 years at the time when he got hurt. And Ronald Reagan, that's another one, 45, 50 years or more when he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. They had been married already, So my point is, a person that has been perhaps in a short-term marriage, if they just got married, would they have a different outlook on a persons that have been married for, say, 20, 25, 30, 40 years? Do you think the time affects the decision if they would leave or not, if the other spouse was disabled? Absolutely, yes. I believe that. I believe that if a person has been married for a year and something happens to their spouse where it's going to be a long road ahead, a lot of caretaking, a lot of things that the spouse is going to have to do. I'm not talking about just cooking a meal. I'm talking about everything. I'm talking about going to the bathroom, Waiting till they take a shit, and you have to help them wipe. I'm talking about giving them a bath. I'm talking about, dressing them every day. Now, I know a lot of you saying, well, you can pay people. Yeah, you could. But a lot of people can't afford that. So the spouse has to do that. Or should do that anyway. I'm talking about major life-changing events. So I do believe that if a person's or a couple have only been married for a short time, absolutely, they would look at a situation totally different than someone been married 30, 35 plus years. Hell yeah. Time does have a factor. I know a lot of you saying, no, that's not true. Hell, it ain't true with everybody. It's always an exception to the rule. But I think for the most part, time spent in a marriage relationship definitely does have a factor. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, well, I know people that was married 20, 25 years and something happened and he left or she left. Well, like I said, there's always exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, I believe that time absolutely does play a factor in determining if that person will stay in a marriage when something happens to their spouse. But it shouldn't. It shouldn't. If you took those vows, those very vows, then time or anything else should not matter. Because you took a vow. You took a vow if they get hurt or if they get poor, or whatever the case may be. You said, you promised you was going to stay. With this ring I thee wed, and all my worldly goods I thee endow. In sickness and in health, in poverty or in wealth, till death do us part. You made a promise to that person. So time, their illness, their sickness, their disability, all of it should not have any bearing on your decision to stay. It should be automatic. I'm staying. This is my baby. This is my man. I'm not going any damn where. I'm going to help him get through this. I'm going to help her get through this. We're going to get through this together. Because I made a promise to this woman. I made a promise to this man that I would be by her or his side until death do us part. Now, if you're listening to this episode, and you're listening with your wife or your husband, I want you to turn to them. Now, you know what I'm going to ask you. Shit, I mean, you know what I'm about to say. I want you to ask them, honey, if something happens to me where I'm disabled or, get blind or I get in an accident and have to amputate my limbs, or I come down with a disease, I can't, I might have MS, multiple sclerosis, or some Parkinson's disease, or something that's going to affect you too for the rest of your life. Ask them, would you stay? Honey, be honest, would you stay? Now, that's a bullshit question, right? I know that. Because there's nobody that's going to say, no, I'm not going to stay. I'm out of here. Fuck that. There's nobody that will stay. If they do answer like that, then you need to get rid of their ass. But most people are going to say the politically correct answer. Of course, baby. I'm going to stay. I want to be here with you. I'll never leave you. Are you kidding me? We've been married for 5 years or 10 years. I'm not going anywhere. And they might actually believe what they're saying, right? The politically correct answer. They might actually believe it. But I think, unfortunately, this is a question that cannot be answered right now. This is a question that cannot be answered until you're actually going through this type of event in your life. Hopefully, no one goes through this. I hope I never go through this when I'm married. But this is a question that cannot be answered until, like the old saying, until you cross that bridge. You say whatever you want to say now. Yes, I love her. Yes, I love him. Of course, I will stay. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm being realistic. You cannot answer this question until it actually happens to you. A lot of people always talk a lot of shit, but when it's time, when dues are time to be paid, then you don't know. Then they don't say nothing, or they're just talking shit. A lot of people can do that. Anybody can do that. But real is when this scenario happens. When it happens, when your wife actually gets disabled or critically hurt, or a disease that's going to impair her, or your husband gets sick, or disabled, or critically impaired, or something that affects him. You're not going to know how you will answer this until you actually go through the event. And then you won't have to answer it with your mouth, talking shit. You answer it by your actions. That's what's important. When you answer it with your actions, there's no need to open your mouth. I had a school friend. Well, let me see. Well, damn, yeah, we went to school, elementary through high school. So from kindergarten to 12th grade. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to put his business all out there. But when I was talking about this episode, I was putting it out on Twitter and stuff. He replied and told me about his person in his family who had a disease in which it came on them, and the other person actually stayed. And I noticed this person. I haven't seen him in a long time, but I know him pretty well, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was going through that. But, he told me that the other person actually stayed, in the marriage and actually doing things that they said they would do, what they promised they would do until death do us part, And I don't know, I just think that's a noble act, because so many times in today's marriages, a lot of times people just say the words and they don't mean what they say. And a lot of times that as soon as things go dark, they out of there. Whether it's irreconcilable differences, which is bullshit, or it's something that, illness or sickness or disability, what we're talking about tonight. As soon as things get bad, whatever the case may be, they're out of there. So I just think it's noble when a person actually does what they're supposed to do. What they promise they would do. Now, I know, a lot of you are saying, well, he married to her, he's supposed to. Yeah, he is. Or she is. But a lot of times, if you know, that's just not the case. So if you looked at your spouse and you asked them, would you stay if that happened to me? And they might have answered you, or they might have looked at you like you was crazy. But like I said, unfortunately, this is a question that cannot be answered today. This question can only be answered when you two are actually going through this type of event in your lives, which hopefully you will not have to experience. I mean, hell, even myself, I'm keeping it real. I hope that I am man enough, to stay, or to, acknowledge my vows that I took when I get married. I hope I'm man enough to do it. I'm being real. I'm not putting myself above you. I'm just like you. Just like you folks. Now, I'm, politically correct. I want to say yes, absolutely. I'm going to stay. I'm going to be there. And, I know I'm going to be there. I wouldn't do that to my wife. But like I said, that's something you can't answer until you're going through it. I don't know. I'm being real. But I believe that I would stay. I really do. I really do believe I would stay. I think most people believe they would stay. But they just don't know. They don't know it until it actually comes to pass. So action speaks louder than words. You don't have to answer right now. But if it happens, your action will speak for you. I'm going to take a little break, and then I'm going to come back and conclude tonight's episode. On this subject. It kind of hit home a little bit. This is definitely, obviously, what a lot of people are going through in today's world. Happens every day. Where someone gets hurt, another person leaves or stays, whatever the case may be, but it's something that affects a lot of marriages. So I think that, once we start communicating a little bit more on this subject, and just putting it out there, just talk about it. Maybe, who knows? Because communication is very important in a marriage. And I think that the more we communicate with one another, we will actually become better partners with one another. So, I'm going to take a little break, and I shall return to conclude tonight's episode. You're listening to the X and Y Show, and my name is Roosevelt, and I'll be back in about 4.5.
Welcome back to the X and Y Show. Hope you're enjoying tonight's episode. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Google, Instagram, and Tumblr. Well, alright. Back to our real cute teddy bear of a host, Roosevelt.
And welcome back to the X and Y Show. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode. Next week we'll be, I will be talking about what is the acceptable age gap between two people. What is the acceptable age gap between two people? Basically, I'm talking about when you see a cougar with a young guy, is that acceptable? I think it is, because I like older ladies. I like ladies around in their 60s and stuff like that. And I know a lot of you saying, "Oh, that's disgusting." No, it's not. Until you try it, don't knock it. Because let me tell you, I'll talk about that next episode. But that's next week's episode on September 2nd, next Friday. So be sure you tune in for that episode. I'm sure we'll have a lot of fun with that one. Again, I have the show available on many different platforms for your convenience. You can listen to the show, remember, on TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, and iTunes. And you can also catch up with me on social media, Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can see my social media and all of those different platforms on my website, www.thexyshow.com. You can find everything that you need there. You can also go to the Spreaker platform. That's where I broadcast from. And you can see all of the archived episodes that you missed as well. And be sure to be a true X and Y, buy a t-shirt. Show everybody you love me, love the show. And send me some feedback through emails. I'll definitely read them on the show as well. With that being said, that is the end of the night's episode of the X and Y Show. Remember, you cannot have LOVE without X and Y. Good night.
You've been listening to The X and Y Show with your host, Roosevelt Colbert, the place where real relationship issues are talked about and addressed. Join us next time. You can now put your clothes back on. Or not.